This is the start of a video where I'm talking about Fortress water-based gloss, the paint from Screwfix. Now, we're jumping about on this. You're watching this at the very beginning of the video, and I'm at the stage where I've just put the second coat of gloss on. This door has had the primer undercoat as the base and 2 coats of gloss. If you want to know more about this product, please watch all the video. If you want to know how good it is at the very beginning, within the first 30 seconds of the video, all I'm going to say to you is, whoever is behind the development of this paint, I'd like you to reach out to me and get in touch, because I want to know who's doing the testing of the paint, who's actually saying that this product's fit for purpose and being sold to the public, because I've struggled with it. And I'm going to say to you now, if you watch the video, I've discussed it further on. I've got bubbles coming on this surface. I've got bubbles at the bottom. This is the final coat. I've even eased it. I've put some water in to the final coat to help it apply and flow and help with the application. I want to know who's tested this to say this is good to go to the general public. I'm a professional painter and decorator. And I would not say to somebody, if you're a DIYer or somebody wanting to do some painting with some water-based gloss, use this paint. But if you want to know more about this paint, please carry on watching. But in this first minute, I'm not pleased. I'm not pleased with that. That is not good. Reach out to me, somebody who's behind this, because you're not testing paints properly. Welcome everybody, welcome back to the channel. You've seen a number of videos back, depending on when you're watching. I've been trying some Fortress paint out. Now the Fortress paint is available through Screwfix, and so far I've tried their primer undercoat. We'll call it the acrylic primer undercoat. These are all water-based paints. I've also tried their brilliant white satin, which, if you saw that last video, I actually thought that was really good. Value for money wise, it got the thumbs up. The finish wise, it was really impressed. Really impressed. Couldn't go, I'll say you can't go wrong with it. Probably somebody will go wrong with it, but I couldn't find any fault with Dave the Door. But I've come back now. We've done the undercoat, we've done the satin. Par for the course, we're going to go with the water-based gloss. Now, I've got a tin of the water-based gloss, and again, I'm going to tell you that you might see a paper motion in the corner. This isn't a paper motion video. Paper motion's all to do with my Amazon associate. Links that are down below. Please check those out, because there is an Amazon store that I can try and promote, get a little bit of a commission. But paper motion is nothing to do with Fortress paying me to say this video is good, bad, or in between. We've got that out of the way. Right, the Fortress paint, available through Screwfix. And again, this hasn't come from Screwfix giving me any free paint. I've purchased these cans, $8.99, $12.99. That's what it's cost me. We're going to try this gloss. A water-based gloss that says on the side of the can, non-yellowing. If it's a water-based paint, you don't expect any yellowing. Yellowing comes from oil-based paints and the UV light going onto it, or lack of UV light to keep it a bright white. If you've got no light on any oil-based paint, it can go yellow. Now, there is a bit of an anomaly to that, because if you're using hybrid paints, and some of the hybrid water-based paints have an element of a oil content, particularly in their glosses. Now, one of those paints was the Futura Aqua 90, the very good gloss, but I did notice I only had to blink at it and it looked like it was going yellow in front of my eyes. That said, this paint, water-based, it does say non-yellowing, tough and durable, and I thought the satin was really tough and durable. It's an interior-exterior paint, and it's for wood and metal. Now, we can't go wrong, can we? Hopefully not. Right, let's make this clear. It does say on the back of the can, touch dry, 2 to 4 hours. Recoat time, 10 to 12 hours. And again, like their other products, it is saying that a fully cured amount of time is about 7 days. That's fair enough. You can apply it by brush. You can also apply it by roller, and it does say foam roller. If I was doing it, I'd probably look at a microfiber and try that out. But for today's purposes of the video, we are still on with the Knorr Heritage brush because it keeps everything simple. We're using the same brush for everything. So just to make it clear, the back of the cans, excuse me, just to make it clear, it does say on the back of the can, make sure you've got your surfaces prepared properly. I'm going off the back of a door that was previously the satin finish. I have rubbed that down, just denibbed it. I've gave it a coat of their primer undercoat to give it a sound base to work from, and it will be having 2 coats of the gloss. I won't want to chance a water-based gloss going over another glossy surface or anything like that. And I always probably try and say to you is, if in doubt, start with a primer stroke undercoat as your base and work from that. Now, you've seen probably a number of videos that I've tested in that playlist that do say you can actually give a good a good rub down to get a sound base and go over the top. One of those paints is the Heritage from Dulux Heritage Eggshell. They're ones that can go straight over previously painted surfaces. And again, that's not a bad paint either, but quite a bit more expensive than what these are. Hence why we're doing a video on these cheaper budget paints. And so far, the budget paint being that brilliant white satin, I was very impressed with it for $13.99. So let's see what the gloss is like. I'm going to get a first coat on. I'll just talk you through how it feels for the first initial trying it, because I'm trying it cold, literally. And then I'll go off camera. I'll probably do my usual, give a quick interlude of what I thought it was like to apply for the whole of the door. And then I'll come back tomorrow. I don't think I've got time today to get a 10-hour recoat time in. I'll come back tomorrow, give it another coat, let that dry, and then we'll do a bit of a summing up. But so far, so good. I've got the brush out, I've got the paint out, got a kettle, got to sniff the bristle. There's a proper acrylic water-based ammonia smell to that. But let's see how we go. I've got a proper paint kettle working from one side of the can. Let's say that again. I've got a proper paint kettle. I'm working from one side of the kettle, you can see, and I'm just going to bed my brush in. It feels a little bit thick. And I'm going to say to you is, don't jump to the conclusion that just because a paint feels a little bit round, a little bit thick, that you need to start putting thinning agents, depending on what paint you're using. This is water-based, the thinner, and the product used to dilute it is clearly water, being aqua-based, aqua-water-based. But don't go in like a bull at a gate and thin down everything because you think it feels thick. There's certain paints that I use that you go, oh, that feels a little bit thick. But actually, by the time you get it on the wall, it's actually nice to apply. One of those is Farrow Ball paints. Farrow Balls don't always need thinning. Right, we dusted off, we sanded down. That's all been primed, stroke undercoated. And I'm going in, loaded my brush up, and we're starting with the mouldings. Cutting that in. That feels quite sticky, and it to be expected because we are using a gloss paint, but it doesn't feel thin. Like I said with the satin, I put the first coat on, and then for the second coat I did add a little smidgen of water. Let's see how this goes. If this is a case I just need to add something to it, I will tell you. But so far, I don't think you will need to add anything. It seems to go on quite creamy. Ooh, creamy. Like a Cadbury's creamy egg. This is where literally a thicker paint, and particularly these glosses, get the paint on, put enough on, don't try and scrub it out, but make sure that you are crow's nesting it and getting it on in every direction to start with to cover that surface, and then horizontal, and start laying it off, start getting it spread out. I will come back to that in a moment, but I've got to get it on because it does feel a bit thick. And as I said before, this, I shouldn't really be stopping when I've got gloss on the go. This Fortress undercoat seems a very dry undercoat. So it will pull on you slightly. It won't slide and glide. That's a good one, slide and glide. Try and get it on as quick as you can and then lay it off. So we're getting it on, crow's nesting, all over. I probably feel it's going off on me a little bit too quick. This is why you'll need to do 2 coats, and I'm really trying to brush that out. Tips your bristles, lay it off. I will say, I know I've been talking to you. Let's hope that flows out. That's a little bit of a struggle to... I'm going to say, don't play about with it, just get it on. But looking how those mouldings are, they're actually quite a good gloss. I'm just going to knock off that fatty edge now that just goes around. That fatty edge will then dry off. So by the time you come back to it, it's not going to affect your finish of your door. Right. In a wet state, that looks very... Let's try and get that across there. That looks very glossy. But let's see what it's like when it dries off. Let's see what it's like when it's had a second coat. Now I'm going to crack on with this. I think I've got a little bit of a fight on my hands to get it on, but let's see. And I'll catch you later tomorrow. You know what I'm like for coming back to you after I've got that first coat on to give my initial first thoughts, because we've got to see it as it is. I have to say that wasn't the easiest paint to apply. Now, I know how to do brushwork. If you get me some oil-based paints, I'd be able to get that on fine. And you adapt, don't you, to try and improvise. That pulled. Now, whether it could just benefit from a little bit of water to it, I'll do that on the second coat. But I'm wondering whether that actual primer undercoat is... Have I got it? I'm wondering whether that primer undercoat is actually a little bit too dry surface to help with the flow out of the paint, whether it be the satin or actually the gloss. That struggled to actually apply to the surface. Now, my brush is good. It's not particularly cold in here. You can't say the temperature's made the paint cold. I mean, it's just as what we'd do if we're a decorator. You'd be painting cans on the back of the van and stuff, and in somebody's house, it's just room temperature. But I would say that if I use the word ropey, do you know what I mean by the word ropey? Please give us some comments below. That to me is looking a little bit ropey. If you don't know what it means I can see brush marks in it. It doesn't seem to blend out and flow enough for my liking at this stage. I'm also seeing on these lower panels some little air bubbles coming to the surface. Now that's normally because you've got a quality of paint, i.e. something that's got a bit of vinyl, something that's got some resins in it to make a glossier paint. Are reactivating a surface underneath that's probably a cheaper, drier surface, i.e. your primer undercoat, and it's trying to make it breathe. And then it comes through that top surface to get little bubbles. This is where you've got people who are doing bare plaster painting, and you've seen a video there about bare plaster painting. If you don't use a decent quality paint stroke primer to start with, and the people are using cheap contract mats, when you put a better quality paint over a contract mat or a cheaper paint, that reactivates the moisture to try and make that paint breathe through it. I'm wondering whether I'm getting a little bit of that. I'm not sure. I'm just surmising. It's not a dusty surface, so that's not going to be the problem, because this is a brand new painted surface. But I am actually seeing, and now I'm looking at the bottom of the door down here. You probably can't see. Down at the bottom, down on the bottom rail, that's got a lot of little air bubbles on it. And I'm going to leave them to see whether they dry out and pop. But I've got air bubbles coming there as well. There's some more coming. and this is over its own primer undercoat. So at this moment in time, I'm a little bit disappointed because I'm coming off the back of a video that was the satin that I was really impressed with. This, it's a cheap gloss paint. Like, I'm going to say that. That'll be my excuse. Let's see how we are tomorrow. But as we are at the minute, I'm a bit like that. Tomorrow, I will put a bit of water in it. I will probably give it a little bit of a nib down just to knock off any air bubbles if they're still there. But we'll see what a second coat's like, and we'll make the conclusion and the assumptions. And yeah, I don't know. I'll catch you later. See you tomorrow. I'm just back. We're all dry. I thought I'd just give you a little bit of a summing up of what it's like after one coat. Now, I've just been mentioning about little air bubbles that are on this rail here and down at the bottom. Now, I've just gone over with a fine Merca Gold Flex pad. They're still there. Bit worrying. I don't know why that would happen, because the surface is its own undercoat, if you know what I mean. It's a hand in glove, and we like that. We'd already got the proper undercoat primer on, and we've gone over with a coat of gloss, and the air bubbles, little pin, only small, were still on the surface after it had dried, so they didn't actually pop back and settle out. I'll say a little bit ropey, a little bit patchy. It's not an even coverage. There's even some air bubbles just there. I'm going to go now, get a little bit of water. I'm going to put some water into that paint, and I'm going to give it a coat up and see if that makes any difference. I've got my duster brush. I've dusted it down, and let's see how we go. But I just wanted to tell you that after it was dry, which it is now, so it looks a little bit patchy, and those air bubbles were still there, and they dried actually on the surface. So let's get it painted. I'll see you when it's dry in a few hours. Right, I'm back. We've faded out from the last bit where, yeah, right. It's been done about 4 hours. Might be 5 hours now. I'm going to say sheen level. You saw the front of the video, so you know where I'm going to be coming from. Gloss level. It's clearly not up there as a 90-95% like a hybrid. The sheen, I'm going to call it a sheen level. It's not bad. It's passable as a gloss, and you can see the ring light moving about there. It is picking up on a gloss finish. That's all I've got to say that's good about it, probably. Don't want to be horrible. I put some water to that finished coat of paint just to make it easier to apply, and I could have gone a little bit more to make it even easier, because I did still struggle. Water-based paints, don't fiddle about with them. Don't play with it. Get it on and lay it off. Now, I did try, because it was thicker on that first coat of the final gloss, to try and brush it out, get the flow, get it evenly spread out. I would say bang some water into it, particularly this. All the paints might need it as well. Bang some water into it. Get it on as quick as you possibly can with a crow's nest. Go on with the brush. All over. And quickly lay it off with the tips of the bristles. Get it on as quick as you can. Don't play with it. Because this, even though I've put some water in it, I still think we need a bit more. It looks a bit ropey. And edges for flowing out, I've still got a little bit of, you know, if I say flashing, don't look at it like flashing like you get when you've got filler flash or anything like that. More of a case that when you've tried to lay off with the tips of the bristles, it was just slightly pulling, and you can just see it across this surface. And I'll bring the camera in a minute, but it's a £13 tin of paint. You're going to say to me, what do you expect? I would have expected that to applied a bit easier. I'd have expected it to probably flow out a little bit easier because it's the gloss, and it'd be nice to see a bit better sheen to it, gloss finish. I'm trying to think what's comparable as a good decent gloss. H&G Hanford and Green. a bit more. You spend a little bit more money. A litre tin's around about £30. But the Hanford and Green gloss wasn't particularly easy to apply. I didn't put any water to it, which could have probably benefited it, or even some paint conditioner. But the gloss level of that Hanford and Green is one of the best ones for a water-based paint. You're paying a bit more money. You get what you pay for. This, we're only paying 13 quid. The gloss level's acceptable. You'd pass it, but not. It's not brilliant. I'm going to bring you off the camera because I don't know what more I can say. Right, let's have a look at this. Because I mentioned about... Turn my mic round. I mentioned about bubbles in the surface. I can't understand. Let's see if we can get this. There is, if you can see that, I'll bring the ring light in there. Can you see that surface? Yes, we can see it. Can you see those bubbles there? They are bubbles on the surface that appeared with the second coat going over the first coat of the gloss. Why is it doing that? Because we've got a dusted off surface. It was going over the same product. It did it with the first coat of gloss over its own undercoat, the primer undercoat. But why have we got that? I'll pick up on a few other little things because I can paint a door with a brush, but just look at this. I mean, this is really close up, so you are seeing brush marks and stuff. But look at it. You can just see these on the surface, look. Can you see them? Little air bubbles. Can you see them there? Let's try and go. Yeah, you can just see them. That's on the surface. Why? Why are we getting air bubbles on the surface? We shouldn't do, should we? Gloss level, again, I'm saying this has only been done 5 hours. What it should be like after a couple of days, I'm not sure. But if you can just see there, you'd say it probably needs another coat of gloss just to try and get a bit better. But I'm trying to get the light. I'll put you back on the stand. There we have it. I've got you a close-up on there. It's probably fit for purpose for people who just want a cheap tin of paint. But I've struggled with that. And I said at the very beginning of the video, I can paint and I've struggled with that. If this has been picked up in Screwfix by people that just want a cheap gloss paint, it's not, I'd say don't bother. What I would say you need to be trying and using, because that is brilliant. I would say that is a really good paint. As a satin paint for £13, give this a go. Use the correct undercoat. The undercoat is a very dry undercoat, but you're putting 2 coats of top over it. 2 coats of that was a lovely finish on that door, Dave the door. Unfortunately, I've gone in thinking that the gloss would be on a par and as good as what this satin is, and it's not. The gloss isn't a patch on the satin. The satin, we get a thumbs up. The gloss, we've got a thumbs down. And on that note, please watch the videos at the end. Thanks for supporting the channel and all those giving me super thanks and buy me a coffee. It's much appreciated. Again, if you know of a paint that you want me to try, if there's a company out there that wants me to try some paints and you don't mind sending me a litre, I'll give you an honest review. This isn't paid by anybody. This isn't sponsored by anybody. I bought these tins of paint and I can give an honest review of what I think of this paint. It saves you buying it to try it out. I've done it for you. And on that note, see you on the next one.